Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at ubnradio.com.
Welcome to Charmed Life, a radio show discussing spirituality, magic, and the unconditional love of the universe. Thanks for tuning in. Hello, welcome to Charmed Life, broadcasting live from the Universal Broadcasting Network studios in Hollywood, California. I'm Tricia Carr, I'm your host. Hi, Jarvis. Jarvis is over there working away. However you're tuning in, if you are watching us live on ubnradio.com, or if you're catching us on the podcast or webcast, well, guess what? You have perfect timing. So, because I believe in perfect timing, so thanks for being here with me. And if it is your first time joining the show today, watching us, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I am Tricia. Like I said, I'm a medium. I'm an intuitive. I'm an animal communicator. And I love to talk about magic and unity consciousness and one love, Gaia love, all that kind of stuff. But you can find me, my website is Tricia Carr Charm. It's TRICIACARR. And my social media handles are also at Tricia Carr Charm. So just find me. And then you can keep up with when I'm doing any kind of broadcast or blogs or anything like that. So let's get into today's show. Today's guest is intuition and perception expert, author, counselor, and trainer, Penney Peirce. Welcome, Penney. They love you. They love you, Penney. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I was having a little trouble with the audio there.
Oh, okay.
It's okay now.
You good? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Hi, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
I am a really huge fan of Penney's work. She has several books. Today I wanted to talk about one of a trilogy called Leap of Perception. It was just released in paperback on October 11th. And so, Penney, would you like to give us a little background about your work and, of course, an overview of Leap of Perception?
Sure. Yeah, I've been... I started off as an art director and interior designer and graphic designer, and then morphed into working with design principles way back before design thinking existed. And I think that training in design gave me a lot of insight about how to think about problem solving. And then it gave me, once I opened up metaphysically, which happened around 1977, it helped me have a way of thinking about spiritual things that was much more grounded than the other people that were doing a lot of the work at that time, which was pretty out there, back at that point.
I know, I get it, yeah.
Yeah, and anyway, so I started teaching intuition development trainings and doing lots and lots and lots of private sessions for individuals, which taught me a whole lot about how the inner realm of the mind and the emotions and the soul affect the physical world. Right. And, so that became so fascinating to me, how the inner world creates the outer world and, how all these things are merging and fitting together. And then paying attention to what was happening under the surface of life all the time. I was always looking like, why is that happening? And so I started looking for trends in society and looking at what was happening in people, because things always seem to be accelerating.
Yes. Right.
So, and it was every year it was accelerating more and more and more. So finally I really realized I was talking about transformation. And so I started writing books the first book, in The Intuitive Way, was published in 1997.
Wow, great.
And
so
then,
20 years after your metaphysical opening or awakening.
Yeah, it took, I think that's good too, because I opened slowly. I wasn't, I really built up experience over time, and then everything happened fairly naturally. But it was pretty busy for a long time. And Oh, like I worked with trance medium Kevin Ryerson for about 4 years, and we did all kinds of really interesting work with his mediumship.
Wow.
And and then I've done shamanism and worked in Japan on and off for 20 years. So it's a pretty well-rounded bunch of experience at this point.
Yeah,
So,
that's really dynamic. That's really, really beautiful.
And,
Sorry, go ahead.
And I had written Intuitive Way, and then some years later I wrote Frequency, The Power of Personal Vibration, which became very well known and internationally. And then some years after that, I thought, well, so what's the next thing, that wants to come? And it seems like I can't write a book until it's actually time to write it, or the energy on the planet is at a level where that knowledge is natural for it to come in. And so the next thing seemed Leap of Perception, which is the last book I've written. And it's really about how we're changing out of the information age into what I've been calling the intuition age. And, it's actually a shift of perception. It's causing a shift of energy and consciousness and reality and so forth. And so what is it? How does it work? What will it be like after it really happens? And, there's certainly, symptoms of it happening now, but I think we're sort of in a bridge time, between the old and the new, which is this, it's that birth process that it's always a little difficult.
It is. And you know what, speaking of that in-between place, there's people talking about the different sort of generations that we've put together and given them a name on the planet right now, especially in the United States. We have the baby boomers, Gen X, and the millennials. And I'm the Gen X part. I'm right in the middle of these two. So I feel like I am the bridge right now. It's an interesting position to be in. The millennials are definitely more, moving to that intuition age, if not all the way in there, some of them. Or at least all the way open to it.
Yes, and other people describe it as, different soul groups of beings that have been incarnating.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about new children in your work.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I think it was like around 1970 or so, some of these new groups started coming in. And, so we have the crystal children and the indigo, they have names for them all. But I think a lot of them have had a lot of experience in the higher dimensions, like mental realm, let's say, and not that experience coming into the physical world all the way down, into form. So, but my whole premise here is, that everything's been accelerating. And what does that mean? It means the actual vibration of the physical world has been increasing. The planet itself has been increasing, which also means then our bodies, which are made of matter, are increasing at the same rate.
And that's quantizable, right? That is actually measurable by science, that the frequency of the planet is raising. The vibration is getting faster.
They call it the Schumann resonance,
right?
And it is measurable. And so as that acceleration occurs, actually then the physical plane starts to vibrate at a level that's faster and closer to the non-physical levels.
Right.
So we're having this kind of experience of almost like a bleed through, where the physical and the non-physical come together, and we sort of realize, oh, wait a minute, the heaven's in the earth. It's not separate. We're here. The spirit's in matter, and it's starting to integrate, which then gives us the feeling personally of, oh, wait a minute, I guess my soul might be in my body, or I am the soul.
Mm-hmm. Or at
I
least
don't have a soul out there somewhere, but it's here and now.
Right.
And yeah.
Well, I think, and back to, information age into the intuition age. And if we take it one generation before that, the age before that was the industrial age.
Exactly.
Industrial age is very physical, and then information is less physical. Intuition is almost entirely.
It's almost like body, mind, spirit.
Yes. And we need all of them on this plane.
Industrial age was mechanical processes in time and space and machines, right? Which accelerated, and we got computers, which accelerated, and we leaped into the information age from that.
Right.
And then that accelerated, and we got the internet, and we have now so much information, we cannot process it anymore in the linear way that we're used to processing everything.
Yes.
like A, B, C, D, and you get E, or past, present, future. Life is too fast for that kind of thinking. That is too slow now because everything's happening in a vast present moment now. It's like
an expanded present moment. Yes.
It's very much expanded so that it's like everything speeds up so that it becomes more and more instantaneous as people start to realize they're living in a huge present moment, which has swallowed up the past and the future.
And a huge spatial presence as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And dimensional.
Yes.
Also. So what we have then, and this is the leap of perception I'm talking about, it's going out of linear. And that old, we even have, storylines, plot lines, everything's in lines. And so now we're going into spheres.
Right.
We're moving into an actual experience of being centered in the middle of a ball. And that ball is your aura, or it's also your present moment. And it's also your reality. And it's also your conscious mind.
Body, mind, and spirit, again, yes.
Yeah, it's all there, but you're in the middle of it. And the sphere moves on its own to really encompass or change its focal length.
Wow.
So in some ways, there is nothing outside the sphere. All the past is inside. All the future is inside. All the dimensions are inside. But you have the illusion of focusing it larger or smaller, depending what you focus on.
Yes.
And so what happens then is that everything's inside this huge ball, but at different frequencies.
Right.
So it's all about vibration now, and the different frequencies are different realities. They're different ways of thinking. They're different consciousness,
Yes, and different ways that we focus our attention. And you talk a lot about perception and attention. And what can you explain what you mean by attention and how we can use it in more effective ways, more intentional ways maybe, and why that's important?
Yeah, well, I think attention is going to be really the skill of the future, if there is a future, or of the whatever expanded now.
Yes, right.
Because it's not about intention really anymore, because intention is about the future and using sort of a projection away from yourself towards some kind of goal, but you're thinking of it as separate from you, which is linear.
That makes sense.
You see?
Absolutely.
So, but attention is simply the act of placing your focus, your whole presence really, on something. It could be a flower, it could be a goal. It could be a reality you'd like to create. And as you keep attention on something by being with it, and that's in the present moment, you get closer and closer and closer and closer to it, and you move into a kind of feeling of, I call it feeling into things.
I love that. That really taught me a lot, that phrase of feeling into, because I had been doing that my entire life anyway, so I had language for it.
we didn't have language for a lot of these things, and so feeling into or communing with something, going into communion with something, meaning that you feel one with that thing. So you look at the flower, and first it's a separate object out here apart from you. Then as you look at it, you get closer to it, and pretty soon you feel like what it's like to be a flower, and what that urge of flowering is all about. I mean, my goodness, it's an amazing feeling. Then you know yourself as the flower, and you feel the self in its many forms.
Yes.
And then you have a lot of love and appreciation for anything you feel into, because you always find the core energy of life, or the love, or the unified self, which is a huge thing. It's all the people in the world combined together make this huge self, this collective consciousness.
Because it is a sea of energy. There isn't really, in higher truth, separation.
Yeah. And energy and consciousness are not separable.
Right.
They are flip sides of the same coin. So I always have started now, at least, to say energy and consciousness as one term, because the higher the frequency you get, for instance, the different kind of reality you're going to get, and knowledge you're going to get. So instead of trying to create a future reality right now, which is planning, and then you have all the goals and the steps in this linear process, you stay in your present moment, and you let your mind move into a resonance with a different frequency, which is in your present moment.
Right.
But let's say you want to create a new job and you want maybe, a really cool kind of people to work with and a nice view, or you don't want to commute or whatever it would be. And you put all those variables together in your imaginal realm and make a little movie out of it, and then you step into the movie and you feel yourself in it and you enjoy it. And if it needs revision, you revise it right there. And then you get it to feel the way you like to feel. That's what I call your home frequency.
Yes, right.
Then you keep your attention on that experience. So much so that the body then starts to get the feeling of that.
Yes.
Oh, this is real. Oh, wow, this could be normal. And pretty soon that feeling state, it's almost as though attention on an idea drops it in frequency down enough that it suddenly materializes as form.
And, we can take a cue from science, or kind of science, with the placebo effect. I say kind of science because scientists, doctors have no idea why the placebo effect works.
Right. Good example.
But they use it in science because they're like, well, it works sometimes. So let's,
Right. Yeah. It's attention on a
wellness,
an experience. It's not even so. I'm careful now about how I'm saying things. Like when you say outcome, that almost futurizes it too.
Right.
So on an experience that you feel like you could have, and so the potential of something is your future.
Yes.
Right. And so you can have any combination of variables you want. They're all out there in the imaginal realm to be chosen if you wish. And you just have to say that's the way things materializes. You put attention on it, and it comes to you.
And anyone could, I think, relate to that because there's no way that you could eat a sandwich unless you thought or you imagined or you created the pre-experience of eating a sandwich, right?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, even making the movement of putting it to your mouth, that's, it's amazing how consciousness works. And I think that what we're coming to really is understanding that we do have some universal principles and universal laws that guide the way energy and consciousness functions.
Yes.
And so metaphysics and physics are, to me, totally tied together.
Yes, and quantum physics. And Jarvis is getting in on the conversation now. Yeah, he's like, yes.
There's always a non-physical and physical version of the same thing.
Yes.
Right. And so we're starting to see how they interconnect and actually work back and forth with each other.
Right. One affects the other. It's that duality of in physics of waves and particles. Particles are contracted energy, waves are expanded energy, and one collapses into and disintegrates into the other. I mean, it's wherever we are with duality, then...
Well, we're rocking back and forth between, in a way it's like we're in a particle-based world when we're thinking we're physical.
Yes.
And separate from each other and all that. It's like separate little entities all running around the world together. And then you relax, take your attention off of that world for a minute, and you go into the wave, which kind of rocks you back out to the imaginal realm. And when you're there, you're in the field.
Yes. Total creativity.
The total unified field. All in the imaginal realm, same thing. That's the whole sphere out there. And then you get somehow that part of you out there picks up some ideas or things that it would like to pay attention to, and the attention itself brings them down into form again.
Right.
And then you do a task and you enjoy this world and you let go and you go back out again. And so we're rocking constantly in between these realms. I call that now the round trip. We're always doing this round trip between the worlds, back and forth, and we're weaving them together, knitting them together, so that we see that, all the what we need is right here already with us.
Yes.
So part of this leap of perception is about getting rid of the idea of separation.
Yeah, right. Because the higher truth, and we can all agree that space and time is temporal. I mean,
sure. It's all one thing. Space and time are versions of each other in a way too. They're totally interconnected. And so I think that as we go into this, I'm calling it now the new perception.
Okay.
The old linear and new spherical and holographic also,
right.
Which comes after you realize everything's a sphere. Then you could think of all the points in the sphere as frequencies. You know, and then you can go into any point and it contains the entire reality again. Any point inside your body contains the entire knowledge of everything.
Right.
So you can easily slide in and out of points, you know, and create realities and uncreate realities. And I think we're going to be able to do that very fast in the next few years. We're going to start getting these concepts of how easy it is to create or uncreate a reality through attention.
Globally, you feel that that's going to come, that everyone is going to be able to grasp that as a reality.
I don't know how many years it will take in linear time, but I think that there will be a critical mass that occurs as enough people get this and start to really get it and practice it, that it'll draw other people in, and just the energy itself will start changing people's consciousness.
Right.
So it's not hopeless. I mean, when you look out right now, we're in a phase of clearing the subconscious mind.
Yes, we're doing shadow work, as Jung called it, globally.
Exactly. Global shadow work.
Yes.
Exactly. You know, and it's part of the transformation process, really, that as the energy of the physical world accelerates and gets really speedy, well, then the place where we used to store the subconscious blockages and fear, which was pretty dense and low vibration, well, that's raised in vibration. So the fears can't really stay there anymore. It's like they pop up. They can't stay in place. There's nowhere to hide, you know. And so
absolutely,
all our old traumas and dramas are like sort of surfacing into our conscious mind and daily reality now. And like, what's happening to me, you know, all this stuff. And you're seeing it in politics, in current events, you know, that, the collective subconscious of the country is clearing as well, of, you know, the world is clearing. And so that's, you know, current events.
Yes, that's true. And we see with this, as we're live today, we're just a few days before the presidential election, which we could say has been uncomfortable. And you see, you know, people that are very tenderhearted, compassionate people being shocked by their brothers and sisters that they really do that, you know, it's there. And if in unity, and from the unity standpoint, that is just there. I mean, we're not separate from one another. So that is my shadow, where there's my brother who is saying these things that I think are sad and horrible to say about other people, or, you know, that's that collective consciousness, subconscious work that we're doing. It's surfacing.
It is, and this, as the fear surfaces, you know, it always brings up oppositional thinking. You know, so we get conflict, we get fear, we get fight or flight responses to everything. You know, where you try to control it and lock down on it and maintain your security, or you just give it all up and get apathetic and say, and leave your body, and I'm not going to do anything about this. You know, and I see that. I mean, it's extreme in politics right now. It's that it's being symbolized. You know,
it is
in
such
the way
intense
people
symbols.
are thinking.
Yes.
So in that way, it's very healthy, I think, that these things are coming to the surface and very quickly being sort of crystallized into these visible positions.
Right.
But, you know, whether you say Republican or Democrat, there's no right or wrong in those, because those are two versions of a fear-based way of looking at the world.
Yes, absolutely. Because either way, it's still separate and it's still particular.
Right. And if you take it to extremes, you know, conservative politics gets very controlling, and the liberal can be very almost apathetic or victim-like at times. Oh, look what they're all doing to me, Big Brother, you know. And so there's a third thing now, you know, and it's like, I think we have to eclipse polarities at this time.
Yes.
Move beyond the either or into the sort of both and, which then reveals the third point. You know, that higher reality where it's like with suffering, I think the same thing. You know, you can fight suffering and try to rescue everybody, or you can agree with suffering and become a victim yourself. And it's like, I'm right by being wrong, you know, you know, and be proud of it and all that. But you're still adding energy into the idea of suffering.
Yes. And you're lowering your vibration by either being the victim or the savior. You know, the fighting savior, not just you know,
exactly, or the perpetrator, whichever
those are
way
the three.
You go.
Yes, those are the kind of the three options.
And so to not participate in suffering, for instance, to get beyond it, to say, well, it doesn't mean I won't want to help people or offer things, but to believe in suffering as a big way of life and that the physical plane equates with suffering, I don't buy it.
Right.
It doesn't have to be.
Agreed.
And same thing with like conservative liberal or, but it's interesting how a lot of like the conservative viewpoint, which goes toward the military and so forth, then gets attracted to the Taliban and the conservative element of fundamental religions.
Yes, and that's the enemy. That's they've attracted that enemy. It's the same, exactly.
So, it's almost a cosmic joke. And when we get it, we're going to go, oh, my God, how did I buy into this for so long?
Right. Totally. And I think that everyone is sort of agreeing that we are on the precipice of a dramatic global change. I mean, we feel it definitely in this country, but we look around the earth and we feel it. So, I mean, I think that I would think that there's a reason why this material that you're bringing forth in Leap of Perception, that timing is perfect. As I said at the top of the show, I believe in perfect timing. So why do you think that is? How can you speak to that? I mean, we already sort of have been, but is there a specific way?
Why do I think there's a global shift, or
how the timing of the work that you're doing that is aligned with this global shift, like the leap of perception at this time?
I think it's that I try to keep in tune with what's going on energy-wise. And as I do, the thoughts that come to me sort of come out of the frequency of the times.
Yes.
And so, like I said, I couldn't have written the book Frequency before anybody was aware of energy.
Right.
And suddenly it came out and it was right there, and it was like the seminal work on energy. So, now I've just finished a new book. I'm not going to say what it is yet, but it'll come out next year.
Great.
That I think is going to be the same way. It's another step, that I didn't see before fully, but it was sort of there all along, but it wasn't time.
Yes.
And so I don't know. I think it's just, if you embrace the energy changes and this acceleration and clear yourself of your clutter, your fears, and just become more open, then you stay in tune with the times.
Agreed.
I think this shift also, a lot of it's bottom up and a lot of it's top down.
Yes.
I think there are a lot of people who are moving into leadership positions and older people too, who are just sick of the good old boys network I have lots of varieties of ages of people now as clients who are very much aware. And I think that they're going to start instigating new perception in corporations and in government and other kinds of systems. And a lot of it will be just like forming new companies that work differently. Others will, I think a lot of the old dinosaur kind of consciousness is just going to not work.
Right. And we need that third option that you were...
and there will be things rising out through the cracks in the concrete, that will take over, just because the old things actually won't work.
Yes.
And I think we're even seeing that now a lot, that things that are too hierarchical. I mean, people want transparency in leadership now. They don't want to have somebody just up on a pedestal. They want to know what that person's like and what they're, all about them personally.
Right. Yes.
So we're getting sort of, and maybe it's from Facebook and the internet and social media, that we're starting to get this sense that, hey, I could know anybody.
That's true.
I can be connected to anybody.
Right. And, I've thought that even before I discovered your work, I sort of perceived at one point that with the internet and the way that we are experiencing the change, the transfer of information so quickly and we created the internet, we created computers. They're basically a model of us, of what we can do, that we can communicate with someone instantaneously. We can be involved with one another, and we're reminding ourselves of that. And so I had been thinking that before I discovered your work. So to me, I was like, well, it's natural that the information age would push us into the intuition age.
Yeah. I think so, because we're moving from the left brain now into the right brain, and the right brain is connected, I think, very much with the heart, with the whole energy field.
Yes.
And the left brain is so compartmentalized and linear. and it really keeps us separated from all these little discrete parts that are analyzed and labeled.
Yes.
And as you stay in the left brain and think that's the only way to know things, it's gonna be too slow.
Right.
As you move to the right brain, like Jill Bolte Taylor had a great description of that in her book, Stroke of Insight, where she had to live in her right brain, or she called it her right mind, for a while, and realized that it's all about immersion.
Yes.
The cells were conscious and everything knew about everything else, and there's no language in the right brain. It really is direct immersion and direct experience of life, and all the knowledge is there. And if you need something, and think about it, you've actually gone to the left brain a little bit to stop and interrupt the right brain.
Yes.
So that you can have a focus.
Right.
And but we're learning to move from the left brain to the right, which is again a little bit like what we were saying before about the round trip.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like moving out of the particle into the field.
Yes.
And so you move out and you access through intuition, through direct knowing, and empathy and telepathy, direct human gifts that we all have.
Right.
And you don't get it from other computers in a linear horizontal fashion. You get it directly from the great computer in the sky, the unified field, by opening yourself and raising your frequency. And then you have access to amazing kinds of things and new innovations and all kinds of stuff, And so I think maybe machines are helping us get the idea that some of this is possible.
Right.
But I'm hoping we're not getting so addicted to them that we won't develop our own skills, which are going to far surpass what machines can do.
Well, I think that maybe that there is, maybe that's part of the shadow work, is if we do get too addicted to the machines for a bit, but that's going to start to fail us to a degree, and we're going to keep moving forward into that intuition age.
Yes.
Yeah.
Without the right brain, heart, and all that, and you stay in the left brain and you start to make new technology based only on the left brain, we're getting into the realm of the Atlantean scientists, where it gets dangerous.
Right.
Actually dangerous.
And the field, because the field is pure creativity and pure, let's just say life force, the field can sustain. There's no limit to how much of life force and creativity that the field can sustain, but there is a limit to how much of the opposite that it will be able to uphold, because it is made of the creativity, because it's basically made of left brain.
I think when you're in the consciousness of the field, you don't actually recognize negativity.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Right.
It's like such a weird subset. It's like when you're focusing on being the soul has no concept of problems,
right.
or blockages.
Right.
It's just things work.
Yes.
Now maybe there's, it's a little, maybe there's some kind of a sad emotion, if you could have an emotion at that level, that you can't get all the way through into the physical plane because of the fear that's blocking the flow.
Yes.
But, I think that as we get closer to working with the unified field, we get very aware of the flow.
Yes. Right.
And the flow, to me, is really the sort of collective consciousness of all beings evolving.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Everything is evolving with everything else and helping everything else evolve concurrently in the moment. So that, if I get a new idea, where did it come from? Everybody.
Right.
Yes. They need me to have this idea so I can, give it back to them in the form that I'm here to do. And so the other person has to do something I'm going to need that's their form. And it's just so synchromesh.
Yes. Oh, I like that word, synchromesh. I was just having a conversation last night, actually, with my husband, and about that very, very open, broad conversation about this time-space reality, and he just said, "So who created it?" And I said, "We did," because we is the collective. It's source. It's everything. We did. And now I would love to ask you, because this is something that I think I would get asked if I were talking to someone who is more left brain. As we shift, you say that we should shift out of that left brain into the right brain, the heart, the body, and the cells. Now, a critic or a skeptic or someone who is not really on that frequency would ask, how would we even get things done then if we neglected the left brain?
Yeah, but I'm not saying get rid of the left brain.
Right.
It has its absolute function in the physical reality it's the servant of the right brain.
Yes.
It's not the boss.
Right.
So you use your right brain to access ideas and visions and plans and the sense of something, how it's going to drop into form. And then you take that vision and you drop back to your body, let's say, and you go, so what do I feel like doing right now about this vision?
Yes.
How does it want to translate into this particular moment of time and space? Oh, I think I'll make a phone call. Or I think I'll write a business plan.
Yes.
And then you're in the world and you're doing that and you're enjoying this world here.
Yes.
And then you finish your task, you go, that was nice, I enjoyed doing that, and now, go back out, check your vision again.
Yes.
And then come back in and see what's the next task that comes out of maybe this renewed vision.
Yes.
Now, maybe somebody else in the field did a task that you thought you were supposed to do, and now you don't have to do it anymore.
Right.
But you've got to have this constant ongoing revision of the vision, revisioning of the vision to stay in the flow.
Right.
So you don't get rid of the left brain, but you just don't get stuck in it.
Right. It is the servant of the right brain.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know if you are familiar with this book called The Law of One, and it's also sort of called The Raw Material, RA.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And in this book, there was a bunch of the author and some other of her colleagues. They channeled information. They spent a lot of channeling with this particular group of extra dimensionals or interdimensionals who are benevolent and interested in planet Earth actually growing and surviving and expanding. And they talk about a lot in this book. The author talks about the game with the small g and the game with the big G, and that's sort of that duality again. The game with the small g is going to work and doing doing those different things that you do, the tasks that the right brain, the big G, has conceptualized.
Yeah, and I think when we start moving into the new perception,
yes,
and comparing it with the old perception, which is not going to go away,
right,
by the way,
right.
That left brain consciousness is still here. It's useful.
Yes.
It's just like you think about how humanity has three brains, and we started with the reptile brain, and then we got the animal brain, but the reptile brain's still there. It's instinct, and then we got the neocortex, but the animal brain's still there. It's emotion, it's the senses, and, that kind of thing. So we have it all.
Yes.
Still.
But we're not ruled by the lower, the older.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. We're adding in and raising up the vibration and integrating everything.
Yes.
And so I think that the new perception is the big gain. You start to understand things that we used to know, like pick any topic like marriage or business or profit or anything that we know in left brain linear perception. Like business structure, hierarchies are linear.
Yes.
But a flat structure of virtual people all joining together, like on the internet, like crowdsourcing or something, is, in the holographic spherical perception, So everything gets a new understanding.
Yes.
It totally gets redefined in this new perception, which is a new reality.
Yes. And
right.
What can you say about that new reality? Or you actually say we're becoming a new kind of human being. Mm-hmm. How will that feel, and would we behave differently? What is that about?
Well, I think that, first of all, the new perception creates the new reality, creates the new human being, creates a new identity.
Right.
Every time you get more frequency, you change your identity.
Yes.
So identity is very fluid.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what it'll be like is first we'll have nearly instantaneous materialization and dematerialization of things.
Wow.
We'll understand how easy it is to create what you want, that will give up that victim dominator, polarity that is so heavy in our world today.
Yes.
And and it'll raise people into their, their destinies, into their sense of what they're capable of, and then they're always capable of more.
Right.
So people will start to live a lot more that way. And I think we'll find the development of what used to be superhuman abilities that superheroes have them in the media today, but we're going to have a lot more of that. It starts now with telepathy and intuition and clairvoyance and clairsentience, of feeling energy information, because we're so empathic now.
Right.
Everybody's getting really, really sensitive. Yes. And picking up more information, but we have to learn that skill of deciphering it now and not being overwhelmed. It's a new thing. So we never had it so entirely before.
That was how I sort of really had a big opening, metaphysically or spiritually, was learning that I'm an empath, or just being extremely empathic. But the difference, the distinction that some people observe, which I do because I feel there's people that are highly sensitive and they're picking up the moods and the energies, and but then as an empath, I feel other people's emotions as though they are my own, as though they are native to me. And I didn't know that forever. And when I first learned it, I was victimized by it because I was like, as if I had been just diagnosed with something horrible, but because I knew it was true. And then after I've really learned, developed myself and raised my vibration, to shorthand it, I actually just had a challenge yesterday that the whole rest of my life before having this, this growth that I've experienced, it would have really just harmed me. I was being reviewed, a piece of writing that I had, by an editor, and this person was giving me useful information, but at the same time, this person was projecting some pain of their own. So it was coming, it was coming a way that was very toxic. And I was just sitting there, and I was able to take the information and keep trying to not absorb that. But it's almost impossible to not absorb it at all. But it's like I didn't lose that part of my old perception. I'm just not being ruled by it. I still have the I'm still an empath. I'm still reading it, feeling it, deciphering that information. But now I know what it means, and it's not ruling me. And it was pretty awesome to have such a strong example of it, of that growth.
Well, in a way, with the empathy is related a little bit to this thing I was talking about before of being able to place attention into different frequencies.
Yes.
And holographically go into different center points.
Right.
And when we're empathic, it's like the attention actually does go over into another person or a room or a tree or whatever. And then you feel into it so immediately, right away, that you know the whole thing as your own body. You're sharing space with it in a way.
Yes.
And you become that reality. And to me, because I'm also the same way, I feel like a Tempur-Pedic mattress, where I get pressed in by a lot of patterns.
Yes.
And as it registers as impressions, literally, it's like the pattern becomes me, and then the habit then is to translate it into the left brain.
Right.
Oh, what am I noticing? What am I trying to tell myself? Is this something I need to take action on, or why am I even noticing this in the first place?
Yes.
And then really realizing I don't have to notice everything.
Right.
I can let me just notice what I need to notice.
Right.
And I don't, otherwise I can't function.
It's exhausting. Right. Yeah. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I'm an animal and nature communicator, and it's just something that I've always been, and times that I didn't even know that I was using it consciously, but I do remember consciously using it as a kid, and then I've come back into it and developed some skills about it, put it back in my left brain a little bit.
Yeah.
But being more aware of using it. And I had this experience that's a part of this, it's a chapter of a book that I'm writing about my animal and nature communication experiences. And I had an experience with a couple of butterflies where I was feeling into them, and one in particular, and then I could feel the butterfly feeling into me. I could feel this allowance. And what was interesting was how the experience was, I asked the butterfly, what's it like to be a butterfly, kind of, and the butterfly kind of didn't answer me and just said, what's it like to be a person? Like, he was like, come on, you started this. It was funny, actually. And I was like, oh. And I thought, well, how rude of me. Just demand an answer. And, and so as
we forget that things are two-way.
Right.
Like that.
I know. I'm like the Lord. I'm like, just you tell me. And Jarvis is getting tickled by this. But the butterfly, not to make the story too long, but we discussed compassion, or I think I brought up compassion. And the butterfly didn't really have a concept of compassion because he's so in the flow. I say he,
right.
just it. Right. I don't know if it was a male or female. But he's so in the flow that he doesn't have quite as much duality or the use of compassion. It's kind of like what you were saying about intention. Intention is actually future-based. Compassion is other-based. And
and you're right. Compassion is a component of the flow.
Yes. Right.
I mean, it's natural. You get into those harmonious states that put you one with spirit, and compassion is the natural state of being.
Yes.
Just being.
Right. It's just being.
Right.
And that's it. But it was like I could feel the difference how I have a more of a contained experience of compassion as compared to the butterfly. He just didn't have the contained experience of it.
That's right. We think it's a thing.
Yes, and he's just like, I could feel him feeling like, what are you talking about? It was funny when we talk about the butterfly effect.
Well, I mean, there's a perfect example of left brain perception of compassion and right experience of compassion.
Yes.
Where you fall into it and then you become it. And you realize, oh, it's a natural part of me. It's there all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
What would you say about, we have just a couple minutes, but just as a little tip for anyone listening, because I'm sure, like, as you say, people are so empathic and sensitive, and they would be resonating with this. What would you say to them? How can they not feel so overwhelmed and paralyzed by negativity? What can they do about that sensitivity and make it more normal?
It all starts with really being centered in the center of your sphere.
Yes.
And then striking the tuning fork, if you will, of your own home frequency. That, to me, that means your soul in your body, your soul as your personality, the way you love to feel, your preferred state.
Yes.
And everybody knows the way they really like to feel. If they get quiet and think about when they've been happy or proud of themselves or ready to laugh or whatever, there's a sense of that, whether it's cheerfulness or sincerity or other states that are very high states. You can center back into that feeling state
your home
and
frequency.
say, I choose this.
Yes.
And nobody can make me not feel this if I don't want to feel that, not get off of this,
Yes.
So it's a practice. Every time you encounter somebody's fear out in the world, which can be pretty mean a lot of times and angry, you just let them be, give them space in the field. You don't have to change them or save them. Just let them be.
Right.
And then at the same time, you let yourself be, because it's mutual, right?
Yes.
You let someone else be, you let yourself be.
Right.
And then you can have had your little dip, but then say, wait a minute, that's not my preferred state. So I'm just going to get recentered in my happy little place that I like, and I'm going to get my consciousness on straight, and I'm going to see what I really sense about this experience.
Beautiful. That's great. Thank you for that's a really a great articulation of how to practice that, getting into your home frequency.
It's building a new habit, right?
Yes,
you
absolutely.
have to unlearn that
feeling
old
habit.
way.
Yeah. Well, we are just about out of time. Penny, would you like to tell everyone how they could find your work or get in touch with you?
Sure. My website is just my name, pennypeirce.com, and there's all kinds of stuff on there. There's free things, and there's PDFs of articles and my newsletter, all sorts of things. So
wonderful. And
all the other links. I have lots of talks on SoundCloud and YouTube and stuff too. So
well, it's been just wonderful. Actually, next week, my guest next week is someone who works with empaths. So it's a great segue how we ended. So thank you so very much for being on Charmed Life today, Penney Peirce. It's been such an honor, and I'm really, your work is very edifying to me and to the field, I think. So thank you for being with us today. And thank you to everyone for listening to Charmed Life today. I'm Tricia Carr. I will see you next week at 11 a.m. Pacific time. I love you, whoever you are.